Hi, my name is Rachel Benzinger, and for our course project, I chose to do a research project on the division of labor between men and women in households. The reason I chose to do a research project is because outside of being interested in statistics and research, I thought it was very relevant to the course and the course objectives. This project, I feel, relates to 4 out of the 8 course objectives, and also many topics such as the division of labor, societal norms, the idea of the second shift, and gender analysis. This relates to our course because it may help you to understand how men and women analyze gender roles or gender analysis. And so I had set out to answer some research questions that I had posed, and here are some of the questions. Has our way of perceiving men as housewives changed? Is there equal division of housework between husbands and wives who are both employed? And does the idea of the second shift still exist? The second shift is a term that we had previously talked about in this course. Sociologist Arlie Russell Hochschild used it in his book, The Second Shift. The term refers to the unpaid labor that women typically do after they return home from paid employment. And so with these questions in mind, I had developed a plan to go out and observe 4 different families in my community and to test to see whether there was a difference between the division of household chores and labor between the men and the women. And so for this, I set out to 4 homes where both the husband or father and the wife or mother were employed full-time. I did that so it was equal for both families and all families across the board. And it is also important to note that each family had children. So all the families observed had children. And so I went out to these homes for 3 hours each and recorded the number of tasks completed by each the husband and wife. And for this, I also tried to create equality in the number of tasks completed. So when observing, I didn't record tasks such as mowing the lawn or other things that take a larger amount of time. I didn't record them the same as just taking the garbage out. So for tasks that took beyond 5 minutes, I awarded 5 tallies per 5 minutes. So if, for example, let's just say the father mowed the lawn for 10 minutes, that would be 10 tallies. And if the mother took the garbage out, that would just be 1 tally. So that distinguished the difference and the time amount and the amount of labor that goes into each task. So it was noted. And so for each family, after I'd observed, I had recorded the statistics and I used a measure of central tendency. I used the mean, so the averages for men and women. And so for the mothers, I had found that over the course of 3 hours, they had completed, on average, 30.25 tasks, whereas fathers had completed 21.25 tasks. So overall, there was a difference in the number of average tasks completed. And I'd also put together a couple of graphs to help depict the data collected so you can see how this works. So over here I have the number of families. So each family is 1 bar. Families numbers 1 through 4 are over here, and then on the bottom is the number of tasks completed, and in the blue are the mothers, and in the red are the fathers. So down here for this family right here, you can see that the mother's tasks are about equal to the father's tasks for this household. So for this family, there was a difference of 25 and 26 tasks. So they're about 50-50 in the division of labor for the time period that I had observed. And up here you can see there's a difference you can see that the mother's tasks in blue were a lot more than the father's tasks in red, and you can see that it is unequal between the mother's labor tasks and the father's. So there is a sort of inequality there in comparison to families down here. And overall, you can see that there are more tasks completed by mothers in the blue versus fathers in the red. And that is also explained through the averages. And then I also just did a general line graph to help show, again, the mothers are in blue and the fathers are in red. And you can see the families are labeled on the bottom, so family number 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then these are the number of tasks completed. And so you can see that this family has an equal number, and in general, women do more in comparison to the men. And so, in addition to a measure of central tendency, the mean, I'd also done a statistical measure called the t-test. And this test helps to compare two separate groups and helps researchers to decide whether your statistics are significantly if your statistics are significant. So with the t-test, I ran that for the data collected and found that my t-value was, my p-value was less than 0.05, and it was 0.03. So with that, since it is less than the 0.05, you can conclude that your statistics are significantly different. So there was a difference between the amount of labor that men did versus the amount of labor that women had done. And so with this, I would like to go on. So with the questions that I had originally posed, you can conclude that, with my data, you can conclude, there are unequal divisions of housework between husbands and wives, and you could say that the idea of the second shift still exists, and our way of perceiving housewives may not or may have changed. But since my research is only for families, you cannot use this information to generalize across an entire population, because for the main reason it's for families. It doesn't include same-sex marriages. It doesn't include different cultures, ethnicities, or religious groups. It is simply just for families in my community from Wisconsin. So as far as using the statistics to answer these questions, I don't feel like it's an accurate enough measurement to conclude such things about the second shift and such like that. But I would also like to note the work of Susan Bianchi. She wrote an article or did a study on the trends in gender division of household labor, so a very similar study. And she looked at trends in average weekly household work by genders for individuals 25 to 64. And the types of household work she looked at a ton of different categories of work. To name a few, repairs, garden work, animal care, cooking, cleaning, and laundry. And she did this for many years, I think from 1965 to 1995, and she had found that for men, the average weekly hours of household work in 1995 was 10.5, and for women it was 17.5. So there is a difference of 7.5 hours of work a week between men and women. So this also goes along with my research to show that there is some validity there. But in also looking at the 1960s, there was a much bigger difference between the division of labor. She had noted that men did 4.9 hours a week of household work, whereas women did 30. So you can see over time, over the course of the 30 years, there is becoming a much more equal division of labor than back in 1965. So with that, I would just like to conclude and say that Yeah, the data that I collected does help depict and help aid in